Often people come into FirstLight and they don't really know their story. They will come in and they will say, oh, I had a great childhood. But if we start opening up their story, we start to find threads that have led to the secrecy, that have led to the shame, that have led to sex as a cure for those things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to identify.
Welcome to UNASHAMED, the FirstLight podcast, where pastors and counselors invite you into honest conversations about sexual sin, betrayal, and redemption in Christ. This is your host, Reverend Jonathan Shilts. On the previous 3 episodes, you heard about the overall mission of FirstLight Ministries, as well as men's ministry and spouse care ministry. The last major ministry within the FirstLight umbrella is clinical ministry, led by Sharí Montague. Sharí, welcome to the program.
Jonathan, thanks for having me.
To start us off, I want to address what can be a stigma about Christian counselors. Specifically, that Christian counselors might be great listeners or great affirmers, but they aren't necessarily effective healthcare providers. Can you speak to FirstLight's ability to provide clinical care?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think societally, we don't always think about counseling as healthcare. We think about it as someone to maybe let some steam off with, a paid friend even. So I think it's really important, particularly when we're looking at the Christian counseling field, that we understand that there are 2 things happening for the counselor. The first is that I'm a Christian, and so I have a Christian worldview. I have a theology degree from an undergrad. I also have my counseling degree from Covenant Seminary. So clearly I value the Christian aspects of my faith and who I am as a person. The second piece is that I'm a mental health care provider. So for that purpose, because I work with unwanted sexual behaviors, I'm a certified sex addiction therapist. Again, I'm not just somebody to come talk to and blow off some steam. I'm here to help you navigate whatever you need to prescribe, in a sense, whatever you need for your mental health to be better. I often put it actually in the terms of providing physical therapy. I would say, okay, here are the exercises you need to do. Here, I'm going to help you figure out how to do this, what the right form is to do this. And now I want you to go practice. And then you're going to come back and I'm going to check in. How does that help you? Is there less pain? Or do you have more flexibility? Those types of things. I'm not a physical therapist, so I can't take that analogy much farther. But the same thing is true for me. One of the things I'm doing is I'm helping you figure out how better to be in relationship and how to be a better version of yourself.
FirstLight's mission is to help people heal from sexual sin, whether that's something that they have done or something that their husbands have done. FirstLight Ministries offers check-in meetings, mentorships, groups, curriculums, community events, and trainings. The list goes on. With everything that FirstLight offers, why do we believe that therapy is also a necessary part of someone's healing journey?
I think here, referencing back to the first question, really, is that sex addiction or unwanted sexual behaviors or whatever sexual brokenness, whatever language we want to use around it, there are always underlying factors. There's almost always early childhood trauma of some kind. But even if there isn't anything that we can identify there, there's always emotional wounds that person is trying to heal. That's addiction in general. I think that what we're trying to do is to address, as a whole, is to address you as a whole person, or the participant, the person who comes to us as a whole person. So we recognize that there are the care, the community, the group, the curriculum, those things are all really important. But also there's the need for going deeper and for being able to unpack your story with somebody. While our groups are unpacking story and your story, there's a limitation within group. When you're with a group of people, there are limitations to how deeply that group can go with your story. And while that's helpful and that is good to do group work, there is also the need for the individualized care so that we're looking more deeply at what's happening for you, because your story isn't the same as everybody else's stories. Might be similar, but it isn't the same. So it's good for you to do that with a group, but it is also good for you to be able to do that with a therapist who has the training and the skill to look at what's happening for you and be able to help you start putting pieces together. Often people come into FirstLight and they don't really know their story. They will come in and they will say, oh, I had a great childhood. And yeah, I mean, my parents, they maybe yelled at me once or twice, but it was fine. Sounds like a pretty normal childhood, right? But if we start opening up their story, we start to find threads that have led to the secrecy, that have led to the shame, that have led to sex as a cure for those things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to identify. So I even have times when somebody has been in group for a while and they'll come to me and they'll say, I've been in groups for a year. I've done stage 1 group and I've been in the community and I'm more or less doing what the intake person told me to do or asked me to do, but I still am just not going well with my wife, or things are not going well with my kids. And we'll start talking about what that means. And we start opening up the story and we start realizing there's these threads of inability to connect well, or parents who, while provided for all of your physical needs, really weren't present for you emotionally. What you're dealing with now is an emotional problem. So how can we help you navigate the emotional problem? Group is opening up those questions and those conversations. But then when you come into individual therapy, we get to look at your story specifically and say, what are the threads of your story that we can pull out or that we can notice are happening in conjunction with what you're learning in your group or in the curriculum? Maybe even things about yourself that may not be in the curriculum, but maybe doing your sexual history, you realize, oh, there's actually sexual abuse that I didn't realize happened. I always thought it was my fault, or that I was just, it was just bad because I liked sexual things. Actually, if we look at your story, there was an older kid that did stuff with you and you didn't recognize that as sexual abuse. One example, but it's really important to be able to have that, because then when you do trauma work, then what we're talking about is not just how do you stop doing a behavior, but how do you heal from this thing that was really traumatic? And that's my part of the job, is to help. I mean, it's all of us together, but it's my part of the job is to say, okay, what do you need? What trauma care do you need? What ongoing emotional care do you need? What things do you need to recognize and heal from in your history, in your story? If I can do that, I would have been a successful therapist. If I can help somebody do that, to figure those pieces out and then to appropriately care for themselves.
I want to speak to the abundance of counseling resources we have in our day and age. Now, more than ever, there are books, YouTube videos, podcasts, even chatbots, all aimed at providing affirmation or education. It's almost like therapy is viewed as a transference of information. And once someone has their expert information, they have all they need to live a healthy life. Can you speak to how therapy with a person goes beyond mere education?
I think that one of my jobs as a therapist, one of the things that I've worked on growing in as a therapist, is to be able to see the person in front of me. Of course, I don't do that perfectly, but if I can see you in front of me, I can begin to understand who you are. We, as humans, we are created to be in relationship. We are constituted in relationship. And if we are constituted in relationship, then we must have relationship to be healthy. Therapy is not about the education. The relational aspect of therapy, that is more important than anything else that happens in the therapy room. The relationship is the therapy. So if I have a client who's chronically late, that is disrespectful to me, and it's not providing good care for them because we're always rushed. Now, there are lots of reasons people are chronically late. I get to ask, hey, what's going on when you're late? Is this a pattern in your life? Are you chronically late to all of your appointments? Are you chronically late to dates? Are you chronically late when your wife asks you to pick something up and be home? Or if your husband asks you to be home at 6, whatever. I think that affects their relationship. And so if you're just reading a book, that book doesn't know you, but I get to do that as a therapist. One of the things that we talk a lot about is emotionally corrective experiences. So some of my job is to come in and into the room and recognize that you had a bad relationship with your mom. Yeah, I get that. How can you have a positive relationship with a female who cares about you and has healthy boundaries with you, like your mom should have done? or your friend should have done, or whomever should have done with you. That's helping you relearn how to be in relationship with real people. And that requires a real human. So I can't get emotionally corrective experiences from a chatbot or from reading a book. What we all need is other people in our lives.
For somebody who's listening to this and is considering therapy as a component of their healing journey, what would you say to them?
I would really love to see you be able to talk about this with somebody and be able to unpack what's really going on for you. And most mental health conditions in general, addiction included as that, but depression, anxiety, etc., aren't just healed on their own. And so I would encourage you, especially if you're really struggling with one or other of those things, that you get help. And I would say too, that if you don't know what you're struggling with, but it feels heavy, talk to somebody. That's why we learn how to do assessments. That's why we are taught ways to understand what's happening so that we can properly diagnose something. So having a proper diagnosis will then open the door to proper care.
Sharí, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And now, dear listeners, abide in him so that when he appears, we may be confident and unashamed. This has been Unashamed with Executive Director Sean Maney, Clinical Director Sharí Montague, Men's Director David Noble, and Spouse Care Director Karen Kahlberg. Unashamed is produced by me, Jonathan Shilts. Our theme song is No Indication, used with permission by TrackTribe. Please subscribe, comment, and share to support this podcast. FirstLight Ministries is a nonprofit funded by the generosity of our donors. If you'd like to receive help for sexual compulsion or betrayal, visit www.firstlightstlouis.org.